Today I'm going to talk about the need for control. I've always had this kind of wish inside of myself to control the circumstances of the situation so that I can hold all the plates down, sort of thing. Yeah. And of course, the need for that and the expression for that exposes the lack of control inside. So what I've come to understand, and maybe this isn't a massive surprise to people, is that the need for control is born from fear. But the question is more about, okay, so what is the fear about? And it might be that there was a time in the past where you failed to anticipate something, and that went in as a learning message that said, okay, so for the future, you need to watch out. It might be that there is a sense inside of you which is slightly volatile. And so if you were to permit your true authenticity out, Lord knows where that might end up, and people might laugh at you, or they might be shocked by the extremeness of your psyche. Something like that. There might be an element of shame inside of that. You might have been in an environment in the past where you were controlled, and you rebel against that sense of control now, but there is a sort of a sense of inner rage which is attached to that previous lack of freedom, which is still there. There's still a sort of a serrated edge. What if I don't maintain my composure? What if something happens which I don't expect? How am I going to react? And so instead you kind of get this kind of radar system going, and you're constantly trying to read the room and find ways to make sure that your habitat maintains habitable effectively, so that you're not going to go off on a rail. And you might find all sorts of weird compensating strategies for that. So it's exhausting. You can't maintain a proper sense of control. Things are always going to be unpredictable. Things are always going to happen that you couldn't possibly have guessed. So it's not a winning strategy is what I'm saying. It's not a workable strategy. It's not something which is going to help you on the yellow brick road towards a understanding of yourself and an acceptance of yourself. That's not the way to do it. So here's what I've come to understand, okay? If the control freak is born of fear, it's very, very important to confront the fear, to understand the catastrophe behind it, yeah? And to question if that's true. Or to simply rub away that fear by having an experience which proves to you that the thing that you were afraid of isn't relevant. It might have been relevant in the past, but it is not relevant to today. So there is a learning to be had which causes your conclusion to be different today, so that you can give up on the need for control, so that basically you can say, you know, I trust myself. I don't know what's coming, but I can handle it. Yeah. For me, the best way to do that is to find a moment when you're by yourself, quiet, no airplanes nearby making intrusive noises. Find a moment when you can be by yourself and look yourself in the mirror. Look yourself in the eye. And just take in a few deep breaths and sit with yourself or stand with yourself and notice what's going on in your eyes. Notice what's going on behind the eyes. Look at every part of your face. It can be a deeply, deeply emotional experience. Stick with it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes maybe. Stick with it until you feel the emotional shift. Very, very important, because that emotional shift is like dropping a gear in your stomach. There might be a sort of a hypnotic sigh that comes along with it. That is progress. That is self-acceptance. That is forgiveness. Self-forgiveness. Self-acceptance. Honoring. Opening up to things inside of you that perhaps before you were pushing against, maybe consciously or maybe not consciously. The other one is to confront the catastrophe. Okay, so what if I were to lose control? What would go wrong? What might go wrong? Is that true? Is that my fear, or is that somebody else's fear? Did that fear come from an experience in the past where either I failed to anticipate or where I shocked myself at my action? And what can I learn from that? What can I understand? That there are certain things that lead me to be triggered to run down on my rail in a way that I seem to be out of control about. And if that set of circumstances are to come around again, how might I notice it and what's going on? Effectively, the best way is this idea of coming to terms with what you are, not what you should be. Not that you should be this perfect individual who has a set of stable emotions that are constantly predictable and constantly wonderful, but that instead you are a curious animal. You have good thoughts and bad thoughts. You have moments of explosive rage, if that's the case. Yeah? That you are what you are. But that if you look behind all of that, that's why looking yourself in the eye for such a long time is so important. You will see the joy, the love, the kindness, the goodness inside of you. You'll see that to some extent, everything that you've ever done, you were working correctly at that moment, that there was a reason for doing all of those things at those times. But that today is not all of those times in the past. Today is now. And now you have a choice. Yeah? I think that's all I need to say about the control freak. Yeah, it's based in a fear. Know the fear, understand the fear, accept the fear, own it, and then let it go. Because it's not true right now.